WAEN-FM Atlanta. This is Atlanta's new underground station. Beat Break 87 FM, where music and talk radio lives. Streaming online at beatbreakradiofm.com. The best part of waking up isn't Folgers. It's the Beat Break Morning Show. Start your morning off right with Sean Garvey and the crew on beatbreakradiofm.com.
Hey world, it's your man Precise, and I have great news. The Precise Music app is finally available for your iPhone, Android, and BlackBerry through Amazon and other app stores. That's Precise Music. Music is spelled with a Z. Go get it for all things Precise. Powered by BlackVibes.com. I tried to put it off, but I can't. It's on me. Tried to blame the other man, but I can't. It's on me. Stay in tune. That's Precise Music. Music is spelled with a Z.
We specialize in creating mobile apps for the entertainment industry. Go to bvmobileapps.com, click Get Started Now, create your account, choose your package, upload your content, and click Submit. BV Mobile Apps. Make it easy. Make it mobile.
Listen to Beat Break 87 FM on the go. Download the Beat Break 87 FM app from the app marketplace, including Amazon, Google Play, and the App Store. View photos, videos, and Beat Break 87 shows on your mobile device. Download the Beat Break 87 FM app now for free.
Career tips and info with Coach Mo is brought to you by ftsources.com. Okay, guys, so I have to give you a really good tip today, and I'm pretty sure you already know this, but just in case you don't, LinkedIn profiles. You all have to have a LinkedIn profile. It is a professional platform, and it is the only way that you are going to be seen across millions of other applications and millions of other people that are going for the same job. LinkedIn. Get your profile together. First, you want to go ahead and create one. And remember, the higher level your profile, the more LinkedIn will promote you. Higher level means you go from beginning to intermediate and to expert level to all-star level. And of course, the goal is to be all-star level. And how do you attain all-star level for LinkedIn? Well, it's basically completing your profile in its entirety. So first and foremost, let's talk about the picture. And then as the weeks go by, we'll talk about some other tips for LinkedIn profile all-stars. Well, with your picture, you want it to be plain background, maybe a bright background, nothing dark and shady or gloomy looking. You definitely want to show your entire face. No glasses, nothing covering your face. But at the same time, you don't want it to look like a selfie either. So you want it to be at a good distance that maybe your shoulders are showing in a professional stance. Nothing too relaxed and nothing too sensual. Make sure no one else is in the picture. You want to dress for the position. Not only just dressing for the position, but dress to impress. Dress for the profession that you're trying to attain. And last but not least, show those teeth. Make sure you have a smile in your LinkedIn profile. Okay, guys, this is going to assist you when hiring managers look at your profile, and trust me, they will. As soon as you get the interview, they're going to be looking at your LinkedIn profile to make sure you're a good fit for the company. So again, get your profile pic together, get your LinkedIn profile together in its entirety, and we'll talk more about next steps in the interview process, as well as interview etiquette.
Hey everyone, this is LaVon, and we'd like to welcome you to our new radio show, The Vibe with Vaughn. So come vibe with us each and every Sundays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Beat Break 87 FM and BeatBreakRadioFM.com.
When it comes to hip-hop,
don't stop.
R&B, and talk radio, no one does it better than Beat Break 87 FM. The views and opinions expressed on this program does not necessarily reflect those of Beat Break 87 FM, Reach One Communications, volunteers, staff, and management of Studio 21 Media. DJ 360.
Yeah, what's up, y'all? This your local neighborhood DJ, DJ 360, back at it once again for a week of the truth. You know what I'm saying? So if y'all don't understand what I just said, I said a week of the truth. That means this week we're going to be telling the truth and uncovering hip-hop history. You know what I'm saying? So we going to dig back into the early 80s, late 70s, mid to late 70s to early 80s, all the way up to 2014 this week with one of the most important interviews that I've ever done in my life. You know what I'm saying? We've had an opportunity to sit down and talk to legendary MCs like the Fearless Four, Kool Moe Dee, Peter Gunz, also one of the most important or one of the most relevant, one of the most popular reality show stars right now, Peter Gunz. And we've also had an opportunity to sit down with Ishi from Arrested Development. You know what I'm saying? We've sat down with African-American professionals like Miss Jacqueline Floyd and Eric Helm, education and real estate, respectively. We've sat down with West Coast artists like MCJB representing JJ Fad out there in L.A. or Court Knox representing the Bay Area. Also, we've had, interviews coming with Jose Santana and Big Rich representing the Bay Area. We've talked to Tracy Lee from Philadelphia representing that hip-hop and also education and also the lawyer side and the official side of getting a degree and being able to practice what your degree is in. He's a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? So hip-hop is not just about the music. But this week we're talking about the first. You know what I mean? And after the break, we're going to get into it. It's your boy, your local neighborhood DJ. You don't want to miss this one. Once again, we do have the legendary Van Silk on the line who's going to be with us. But after the break, come back and check out who our special guest is this week. What's up, Van? It's all good, man. I appreciate what you're doing, man. Long live hip-hop, man, the new hip-hop culture. You know what I'm saying? And we going to go dig it up. We going to get the facts and the truth. You know what I'm saying? This is a 360 mix show. DJ 360, you in the 360 neighborhood. We in the 360 mix show, doing it once again on BeatBreakRadioFM.com. Come right back after the break, and we going to get it in. 360.
If you're ready for this, say you're ready for this. If you're ready for this, say you're ready for this. Are you ready for this? We're ready for this. Are you ready for this? We're ready for this. Where we just can't miss. We just can't miss. Where we just can't miss. With a beat like this. It's the joint. We're gonna prove to the world that we're for real. We're gonna prove to everybody we know the real deal. We got golden voices and hearts to steal. Because the 5 MCs, they got to be real. We wanna hear the party people yell Sugar Hill. So what's the deal? Sugar Hill. So what's the deal? Sugar Hill. Ooh, that's the joint. These words we said we want y'all to hear. We're gonna make a lot of sense. We're gonna make it clear. We're gonna rock this place. We're gonna do some class. We're gonna do our best. We're gonna make it last. We got rhymes on our mind. We got rockin' in the heart. And now the things we do, you can call it art. We're back. We're sick. We're doing it hip. We're gonna rock this record. And don't you forget. That's the joint. Because Little Ronnie C is the melody. And Keith help me rock, we sing in harmony. Because Jeff is the rhythm, and K is the bass. Shout out, rock, shaking the whole darn place. And now here's a little story you got to be told. The party people in the place got a whole lot of soul. So when we're on the mic, y'all shocking the house. And when we all get together, we can turn it out. Now we're in the house, as you can plainly see. Everybody say, get funky, and make money, and you don't stop. Give it to us now. Funk it up. Get funky.
Beat Break Radio FM, Atlanta's new underground station. Online 24/7 at BeatBreakRadioFM.com.
All right, y'all, we back. The 360 Mix Show, we in full effect. BeatBreakRadioFM.com. It's your boy, your local neighborhood DJ. You in the 360 neighborhood right about now. And once again, this week, I got my mentor, my big homie, Van Silk. What's up, man?
Yes, sir. We got the first lady, the first MC of hip-hop on the phone today. I ain't going to say her name.
Man.
I'm going to let people... I'm co-signing to let you know she is the first and everything when it comes to the females of hip-hop. I'm not even going to say her name. I'm going to let you say it. That ain't my job.
Wow. Hey, look, for those that are listening right now, we got Van Silk, who was there And he said that this artist, this MC, this legend that we got on the line was the first. So if anybody wants to dispute that, come see us about it at the 360 Mix Show. But right about now on the line, we got the legendary MC, the very first female MC in the history of hip-hop on this planet. And if there's hip-hop on another planet, she was the first there, too. This is MC Sha Rock on the 360 Mix Show. MC Sha Rock, what's happening?
I'm here. You know what? That was a good intro. It couldn't have got no better. You know, for your audience that don't know who MC Sha Rock is, I am the mother of the mic, the first female MC of the hip hop culture, and also known as the luminary icon.
The luminary.
Of hip-hop.
Wow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And everybody who's listening right now, whatever city you're in across the country, all my folks out there in Japan and Pakistan who've been hitting me up talking about this going down. Look, for everybody that's listening right now, it's about to be a history lesson. So take out your notepads, and any rumors or any information that you know is incorrect, I need you to cross it out and write these new notes down, because it's going down right about now on the 360 Mix Show. So for all of those that don't remember, or they need to get up on Sha Rock, tell them a little bit about what your importance is right quick. What is your importance in the history of hip-hop?
The main thing that I want, people to understand, is that my career began in 1976 as a B-girl in hip-hop culture. In 1977, I became the first female MC of the hip-hop culture, and also the first female MC to join an all-male group, and that was the Funky Four. I'm the original member of the Funky Four. Later on, we'll get into it, but later on I became the plus one more, but I'm an original member of the Funky Four. And to also let you know, first female MC on national TV, first female MC to have a record deal. And now, when we talk about, I know there has been a lot of, misconception, out there, and a lot of your audience may have read over the years, maybe, 10, 15, 20 years of somebody else being the first female, MC.
Right.
And my thing is that, we're going to get into it, but I just want, people to know that don't believe the hype. I am the first female MC of the hip-hop culture, and my career did not begin in 1979 when we went into record format. Of course, I made a record in 1979, but my career began way before that. I was an MC, a B-girl on the streets of New York City, playing in the parks. You understand what I'm saying? Playing, at school jams, just representing the hip-hop culture to its fullest back then.
That's right.
And, of course, there were other females that came behind me, but Sha Rock is the first female MC of the hip-hop culture. I have it documented on film, and, we'll get into about the flyer things and all of that stuff, but, I am the first female MC of the hip-hop culture.
And that's and Van Silk, I know you could put your stamp of approval on that.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to say this, and I can say it. When you mention Kool Herc, think of Sha Rock. When you mention Bambaataa, think of Sha Rock. When you think of Grandmaster Flash, think of Sha Rock. When you think of a Melly Mel or any legendary pioneers who's being honored, you got to think of Sha Rock, because she ran with the boys. And
all of them.
Verify all the classic original flyers. As the MC, there was only one female on all the shows until she incorporated her friends afterwards, Sha Rock. That's all I got to say right now. I'm going to jump in, but this is my girl right here, an original MC, not nobody who thought of her. She was down with the boys, and she was the only one running with all the boys in the Bronx.
Wow. Yeah. And since you mentioned the Bronx, of course, everybody in the nation, everybody in the world, we understand that the Bronx is the birthplace of this hip-hop culture, and it's also the birthplace of the first female hip-hop MC, that's our focus for today. We're going to, make sure everybody understands that there's a whole history of female rappers. We can go from today. We got, the Nicki Minaj's. We go back a little further. We have the Missy Elliott's and the MC Lights, the Queen Latifah's. We got the Rashidas from down south. And we got all these, the Mia X's going back toward the west. We got MCJB and JJ Fad. And we can list all of these female MCs. Salt and Pepper. Shout out to Nikki D and Oaktown's 357. All of them. I think they have to, if there was a situation where there was a panel of of hip hop MCs that are females, they would all have to give the crown to MC Sha Rock because she was the first and she paved the way and she blazed that trail and opened the doors. And in a sense, I look at you like the female Martin Luther King type of vision, to where
really?
It was like,
that's an honor.
You know why? Because I say that because Dr. King, although he's not alive at this point, he put his life on the line so that we today can have the fruits of our freedom. We got a black president now. You know what I'm saying? We have female MCs right now because you laid down with, like, similar to what he was doing. You sacrificed. You went through the disputes and all of the, what could be considered negativity and push through and persevere so that there is something called a female MC of today. So how do you feel when you hear, all the good things that female MCs have done over the years? Like, how do you feel about that and your position in that, and how comfortable are you in your skin saying, you know what, I look in the mirror, I was number one, and I'll let them have it. I may not have a Grammy, I may not have a Soul Train or a BET Music Award or whatever the case is, but I am the first. Like, what do you think of when you hear these female MCs today? Or
you know what, I respect a lot of female MCs out there. From the Latifahs to the Lights, to the Lauryn Hills, to the Nicki Minaj's, to the Nicki D's, to all the underground females that's out there now trying to represent the rap aspect of hip-hop. But let me also say that, when you look at it, I am the one, to help lay the foundation. Of course, there were other females, that came behind me, such as Lisa Lee, Queen Lisa Lee from Africa Bambaataa, and also Peppy Pooh. You had your Debbie D's, you had your Missy D's. You had, a lot of other females that came behind me. But Sha Rock was instrumental in helping to make and lay the foundation for the culture. Because what I actually did was had everybody change their game. Being a part of the Funky Four, I had everybody change their game. Everybody scrambled, to get females, to represent them. But I was still number one, in New York, and still holding the culture down. It's not that, not to take anything from nobody, but I did have the following. And let's go back to, how do I feel? Yes, I may not have the Grammy. I may not, have gotten to, VH1 awards or honors or BET honors. And what the females today may have, my thing, what I feel is that, yes, they do have it harder. They do have it harder to be able to prove that they are, good MCs. But what I got that the others may not have is the knowledge, is the jewels, is living the inception of hip-hop. And to me, that's better than a Grammy. That's better than being honored, because you know what? You're talking about 10, almost a decade of the groundbreaking era of hip-hop that I knew that a lot of women today would only just want to experience if they are true to the culture and they love the culture, not just the rapping aspect part of it. So for me, I have a lot, and I'm grateful, and that is the knowledge, the jewels, that God has allowed me to see it how it is now, and where I am now, and where hip-hop is, a rap within hip-hop, and to see other females, doing it. So I'm comfortable. My thing is that, I don't live above my means, but my means is relevant to the hip-hop culture.
Right.
So I'm grateful that I have the knowledge and the jewels. So I'm content.
Wow.
I'm content. But I'm still going to tell my history, because you know what? Because I haven't been talking about it, because, I talked to you earlier.
Right.
And I said, you know what? I thought over the years people knew. It's not like the information is not out there, because you have, so many different people from all aspects of the industry, from bloggers to writers to film producers to people who are writing books. And they're writing books off of my name and the Funky Four, making money. But when it's come time for you to do the right thing and acknowledge the fact in full, you understand what I'm saying, to the masses,
right,
they step back. And I don't get that, because you're making money, off of me anyway by at least including me in the story. So why don't you do the right thing? You know the story. So I don't, you know the story.
Right. So the
right thing about it.
The right thing to do would be to reach out to you and get the authentic, script.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And that's why I don't get it, because they do these movies, they do the, and don't get me wrong, I am grateful that they have, had an outlet to just say, Sha Rock, was there, and she was first. Well, they haven't said that yet. What they did was just include me, in it. But I'm telling you my story. You know what I'm saying? But they don't come to me. But, radio stations, people like yourself, I appreciate it because you do. But when you talk about film and you talk about whatever and people doing the documentary, they don't come to me and ask me my story. They let somebody else tell my story. But you can't tell my story better than me because that means that you're leaving out something.
Right.
You're leaving out the most important thing, and that is I am the first female to set it off for every female that came behind me. Bottom line.
Well, let me jump in real quick. I want to say this. I want to apologize. And I'm going to take the blame. And
For what?
No, let me say what I'm going to say. And every pioneer, every guy that's been around before records should take the blame. Now, I always mention you in any interview I've done, but there's a lot of MCs that came along in the era of constructing this culture who only think about themselves instead of saying, we had one of the first female rappers that should be glorified no matter when you open your mouth about the culture. And it's also, I look at it as a male egotistic thing because it was like you went from Sha Rock, she was the first, and you jumped to Salt and Pepper. Well, you had Sha Rock and you had the girl she's mentioned. Previous, you had a girl named Miss Spinderella who used to do the Riverboat with Hollywood. You had the Mercedes Ladies and Queens that came afterwards. You had, Sha Rock, when she did Beat Street with Us Girls, she had to go and be Us Girls in order to be in Beat Street with Debbie D and Lisa Lee. Then you had Wanda D, the first female DJ. So, I say a lot of the MCs, and they know who they are, never stood up for her. In any interview they did, they wanted to be on their own stick instead of saying, but Sha, you're supposed to say this girl name. This is the way y'all want to preach her as the godfather of hip-hop, which I still to this day say doesn't run well with me because there's many godfathers. This woman right here has never been not mentioned in nobody's interview when you talk about the history of true hip-hop. And I want to apologize again for not even doing more to the queen that's still alive, because it was so sad when Sylvia Robinson died, who was the first woman to go and put out records, and when she died 2 years ago, you barely could see the mention of her in any articles, no matter how people feel about her.
You're right.
Music, and, when Miss Melody died, it's like, okay, but, what did these other people that would die now contribute without the contribution of those who pioneered this? It's like Sha Rock's running around here acting like she's mad because I went on her website and listened to the interview she did with Oak Town 357 and Sparky D and all these other ladies that followed her. They felt like they met Barack Obama, or even if they, matter of fact, they didn't meet Barack Obama. Talking to her was like talking to George Washington or Abraham Lincoln. She freed the slaves.
Right.
Wow. Now that's deep. That's deep. But let me say something to what you were saying. In reference to Herc, and I know your feelings about that, but I have to give some props. For enlighten me on the music, and becoming, I had started B-girling with some of my friends, some of the guys that I know that were called Keith and Kevin, and I don't like to say this word, but back in the days they were called the nigger twins because they were two twins, but they were also badass breakdancers. You know what I'm saying? Or B-boys, that's what I should say. And they used to roll with her. And so they put me under their wing as well. And so I used to go to, B-girl with them, on the 9, or with my other friends as well. But also, I used to go to Herc's party. So I got to give props to him to help me move, along into what was forming as the hip-hop culture, because, I honored, Herc back then because, his music, was really what made me connect, to becoming a B girl, and going on to become an MC. Now, also when we talk about, Wanda D, I got to give her credit as well because when she did a couple of interviews and she invited me to come up, to do something one time with her in New York. But I also got to say too that the Mercedes Ladies DJ, Baby D, they were one of the first, if not the first, the founding female DJs. And I just wanted to touch down basis on that.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking it from her. I just feel, because I'm a little older, There are many godfathers to the aspect of this culture. I'm not going to give it to one person because I did experience going to Brooklyn. I did experience going to Small Paradise when Hollywood was there. And, everybody falls in a tree, and everybody has their tree line where they sing first. And I always said in interviews, even in Yes, Your book, there's more than one godfather when it comes to hip-hop, because if you look at today's media, they look at Russell Simmons as the godfather of all of this, and at the end of the day, it ain't happening.
Well, you know what it is that with Russell Simmons, as opposed to Kool Herc, my thing is that Kool Herc started a movement. You understand what I'm saying? Now, I would say he started a movement of the culture. When you had your DJs and your MCs, which was a part of the culture, and then you had, your B girl and your B boy, your B boys. So he started a movement, but we all know that it was not called hip hop when Herc started it, but he did start up the movement. Now we also discussed, the different areas of the Bronx, like Manhattan, Queens, whatever, that may say, oh no, it started in Queens, or no, it started in the Bronx, or no, it started in that. But my point and my take was on it. Yes, everybody, what I'm saying, was playing, disco music and this and that, in the parks and all of that stuff, your Evelyn Champagne Kings, your Michael Jacksons and all of that stuff. We were, most DJs were playing that. But when we're talking about the movement of the culture, then we're talking about in the Bronx, Theodore, Flash, Change the Game of Scratching, because the DJs, from Flowers, to even to Hollywood, or even to anybody that was out there, in their respective areas, wasn't slicing, wasn't cutting, wasn't needle dropping, nothing. All of that was being done in the Bronx and was being manifested and created in the Bronx, and that's what people don't realize. It's the difference in the movement of the culture, and I do agree with you on some aspects of, where, the different people, were in their different areas. But we're talking about elements that have made hip-hop what it is today.
Now earlier you mentioned that, I think there's a distinct difference between the rap aspect and then the hip-hop cultural aspect.
Absolutely, and that's what people don't get. Yeah. That's what get it, but they choose to ignore it.
Right. So there's a lot of MCs, whether female or male, that are rappers because they're generating revenue, or they're getting popularity, and they're putting out songs and albums and different projects, but it's considered rap because the other elements are not. Like, for example, I've been to, hip-hop shows of artists who are coming out. There's no DJ on the stage. There's no dancers. It's just the rapper and the instrumental. And it's like, okay, this is considered hip-hop to mainstream America or to the world, but it's not so explain, Sha Rock, the difference between and you said B girl, which is the break girls, and the B boys, which is the break boys, get out there and do their thing, and then, which was happening in the Bronx.
Okay, and you explain the difference. I know, like I said, no, some of the artists, today may not be feeling, a break dancer or a B girl, B boy on stage. Some of the artists may not be feeling a DJ on the stage, and not to say that some artists don't take their DJs out with them. Some of them do. But my thing is that when you're talking about, represent all the elements, some people, may just, go out there, with their record, and that's their choice. But when we're talking about, celebrating all elements and then respecting what it was meant to be, you know what I'm saying? No disrespect to another, because my thing is that, you have your knowledge, as years they done add on, many different eras of hip-hop that we supposed to be, represent. You have your basic B girl, B boy, DJ, graffiti, and then you have your knowledge, and then they added on style and all of that stuff, which was already, a part of the culture. It's just that they started talking about it. And my thing is that if you do not respect and you don't respect the origins of what hip hop is supposed to really mean, then that means that you're not real. Yes, you could have good wordplay. That's just a plus. You understand what I'm saying? Because then you got to do wordplay as one element of rap.
Right.
One element, and that is the rap. But if you don't celebrate and you don't out there, you don't have to disrespect or, cause violence or anything like that to get your point across. Let your skills speak for it all, and then you keep moving forward. But if that's how you got to do, and then, it's so much involved, I think, really like in the culture where we're respecting it. Maybe, to some people, they may think it sounds corny or it don't mean nothing for peace, unity, and having fun. That was our reasons for, creating this culture or helping this culture to move forward, to get away from all of that. Why would you want to go back? Why would you want to go back?
Right.
My thing is that, maybe it don't matter. I'll be like, man, fit them ones back in the days. They just mad because they ain't make no money. They ain't do this and do that, do that, and do that. You know what? For some, that may be the issue. You understand what I'm saying? For some, that may be the issue. But if you choose, whether or not you're making $1 or not, you still going to go to your grave, represent no matter what, because you still have one thing that most important is that joy, that hip-hop, feel it in your heart to know that you're doing right by the culture.
Right.
And you're going to go down in history representing, not just because you have hit records, but you made a difference. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I'm most proud of.
Right, and that argument has come up a lot over the last maybe 3 or 4 years that I've been really into, digging up, the realness of hip hop culture. A lot of people go back and say, the first, especially the first generation hip hop cats, the females or the males, like, oh, they bitter, they don't want to work with us, we ain't gonna work with them, they mad because this and that, like so. I understand now what you're saying. Like, it's not about being bitter about the new generation doing things because we're not making the money that you're making.
No.
It's about having that feeling, like you said, that passion to do it to the day you die. Like, I'm still. Who was I watching? I forgot who it was, but I think it was Tash from MC Tash from the Alcoholics out in L.A. He was saying hip hop is something that you live every day. Like, so you can point like this, or then you can put a little bit more on it and point somewhere like this, and when you point like this, that's hip hop. Or you can walk and turn and look like that, or you can turn like this, and that's hip hop. So it's like it's a feeling, and I'm not sure how much of the generation.
And it's in your heart. It's in your heart.
Right. And
let me also explain. Let me also iterate on that too. Now, and when you talk about people. Being upset or, just like mad and, because the monetary reward has never been there with, the pioneers. My thing is that, when you see people, when I see, and it is coming from a female and it's coming from a woman and it's coming from an MC. When I see people like MC Light, and I see people like Lauryn Hill, and I see people like Queen Latifah, and I see people like Nicki Minaj that has made it, and that has, no matter what, and I put Nicki Minaj last because they were before us, but they kept moving forward, and they kept moving forward, and they kept moving forward. So this is the thing. There's no reason for me or anybody else to be mad at their success. The thing is that you could only blame yourself if you have not continued to move forward. No, you don't have to stay in the rap game. You understand what I'm saying? What they did was, and I'm hoping that they used an experience from myself. You know what I'm saying? The Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and other MCs from our era to say, you know what? I learned for them quietly, but I'm not going to let that happen to me. I'm not going to be stuck on a rap issue, but I'm going to make my name and I'm going to do what I got to do and move forward in other eras of the industry to be successful. And that's what a lot of people are not doing. And so even I'll credit, for sure, people like Sean Puffy Combs. So the thing is that no matter what, he didn't stick with just rap. He found other ways to move forward. And every now and then, Jay-Z as well. Go back. So none of us could blame nobody for your misfortunes. Blame yourself that you did not, move forward and continue to move forward to make your legacy become a reality.
Right.
As I'm trying to do. It has been doing for the last couple of decades.
Right. And as we, talk about the current state of the female MC who are, we got, shout out to Nicki Minaj, who you mentioned, who's, signed to a major label, Cash Money and all of that. Now, we've had, of course, MC Light on Priority and Nikki D on Def Jam and the ladies JJ Fat out there on Ruthless. So now we go back to the record label situation with, the Funky Four being on Enjoy Records. How did you all get to the point where you all were able to, you say, okay, we're going to put this on wax. We're going to take what we've done in the parks. We're going to get in the studio, lay these tracks, Enjoy Records. Talk about that situation, how that came about.
Well, as I said to your audience previously, at one point, and to me, I like to name names, because if I don't name names, then it's like I'm not sincere, and you're not going to know what I'm talking about, and nobody else can go back and change the story. Or, you know what I'm saying, when you talk about history, you have to be specific, so that way people could step back and say, oh, okay, she's right. So you're talking about 1979. As I told you before, I was the original part of the Funky Four. Back in 77, 78, we rocking. Okay, so Bobby Robinson, which was, he had a nephew named Spoonie D. He said, look, and Bobby Robinson was the owner of Enjoy Records. He said, look, I want you to go out and see what's going on. Tell me who is the hottest group in New York City. So Spoonie D went back to his uncle Bobby Robinson and said, you know what, Grandmaster Flash and them is awesome, but the Funky Four is killing it. They got this girl named Sha Rock, and I think you should really go with them. So boom, we cut our record with Enjoy Record. It was one of the longest rap records ever. You know what I'm saying? Until someone else went and did it.
Right,
so you're talking about from 1977 to 79. I'm with the Funky Four. I left, and Raheem left. The original members of the original Funky Four was Raheem, myself, K.K. Rockwell, and Chief Keef. Raheem left to go over to Grandmaster Flash in the Furious spot. I just left because Raheem left, and no one told me what was going on. So later, I came back to the group maybe like a month or two later. I became the plus one, and then there were two new members, Jazzy Jeff and Little Rodney C, and I became the plus one, so we were the Funky Four plus one. Within a matter of months, in the 6 months or so, whatever, that we were together, in a matter of months, we had made more history and history. That was our groundbreaking era, too, of making history. Okay, so now we like the first one, in New York City, rap group. And when I say rap group or a hip-hop artist, that's because we was on the streets. We didn't just come into the game, you know what I'm saying, in 1979 when a lot of other people came into the game and record records. And when I say the first female MC of the hip-hop culture, I'm talking about celebrating all eras of the hip-hop culture on wax as well. So he came to us, boom, within, a couple of months. I think we got together in July. By November, we had Rapping and Rocking the House out, on wax, and it was a good thing. So in 1979, you had a handful of artists that came out, some people like, Curtis Blow, Sugar Hill Gang, King Tim, the Funky Four plus one, I think about two more people. Then you had Lady B. So the reason why I came out and start telling my story and correcting the story, because, for many years, I think the world had believed that maybe Queen Latifah was, or MC Lyte was, or not saying that they was, but a lot of times I saw that it wasn't corrected. MC Lyte or Lady B or, whatever. So people were stuck on Lady B. So they said, okay, well, Lady B had a song out, in 1979, and she's the first female rapper of hip-hop. No, that's not true. I had a song out in 79, too. And she was not the first female MC of the hip-hop culture, because remember, I was on the streets of New York, traveling, from state to state and borough to borough in New York on the street, celebrating all eras, from the cassette tapes to flyers. So then I had to come out and let people know, no, that's not true. That's not true. So I felt like it should have been corrected. This has been going on for many years, and it should have been corrected. And then, and I'm honored that the producer, had included me, in, My Mic Sounds Nice. Actually, I was back and forth with her on email on My Mic Sounds Nice. So she wanted pictures. So I was never told what, she said for a documentary, but I was never told what, the documentary was about.
Right.
So later on, I think I seen, that's when My Mic Sounds Nice come out. And so I see, Light, giving props, and I love that. But what I didn't understand is that, okay, you're in contact with me. You know how you're in contact. Why would you not want to let me tell my story? Why would you not do that? And then you had a young man, and then you had Lady B, and much respect to her. You know what I'm saying? And my thing is that, okay, when you're giving history, and the documentary was about women in hip hop and giving, the history of the women, some of the women through my era, and they came after me. But when you putting this information out in front of the masses and the media, it gives the hip-hop culture and its history a disservice that you're not telling the full truth. Because you had to see my stuff all over the internet, and I told you who I am and what I represent. You had to know this, but you allow, somebody else to say that they was and let somebody else say it without breaking it down and telling the truth. That, when you play with hip-hop history, I have a problem with that because it was so easy for you to find out the truth before you release that information out there.
Right.
That's what I don't understand. So bitter not the monetary aspect, but the people that have the power to tell these stories, and not all. Don't get me wrong. I am humbled and honored that people want to be able to tell the story, but why not come to me? Why not ask me? Why would you allow somebody else to tell my story? When I can tell you, I can give you a better story than they can because I lived it. Right. And that's what I don't understand.
Well, let me say this. Again, it goes back to the male egotistic things of how you treat women. Remember,
but I don't think it's all men, though. It's not all men.
It is all men. I'm going to explain to you why.
Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
Remember, you was one out of a million in what we was doing. Everybody was Sha Rock's boyfriend. Remember that. Everybody was Sha Rock's boyfriend. That's my
but everybody had Sha Rock, so let's get that straight. Okay, clear it up.
Donna Ross on Motown. So Sha Rock was like Donna Ross on Motown amongst all us guys. Now let me explain to you. Lady B come out of Philly. She worked on WDH radio. When God bless her soul, Butterbean Ball gave her the job. She, when shows happened, she was the host. Then you had the guys out there with Pop Art Records, and Shantae recorded it out there. And the problem is, again, we all knew the true history in the beginning little circle of when all this started, because eventually we all was in Harlem World, or we was in T Connection, we was in Savoy Man. So we knew Sha Rock was number one. When Winston Sanders, a promoter, they used to do the Madison Square Garden. He put
tell him again what your job was back in the days. What was your job again?
I was a promoter. I was one of the few guys that promoted these groups along 6 or 7 other promoters, and that's what it in the game. At least 8 besides, your team of Together Brothers, with your crew, Breakout and Baron and all of them.
And then the Funky Four.
Funky Four. But what I'm trying to say is Winston Sanders had knowledge of who you was when he put together Supernature and originally with Salt and Pepper. Okay?
Right.
MC Light, father, knew who you was. Okay? Everybody knew who you was. The problem was Russell Simmons knew who you was. I don't care what brand you went into a jersey. Everybody knew who Sha Rock was, because the funny part was they always thought she was the +1, but the +1 meant more than the Funky Four. Who's the +1? Because she was the girl.
That was me, because I came back. Because remember, I was the original Funky Four, but I came back. And so when they got 2 new members, which was 4 guys, then I came back, and then I became the +1. But I was the original Funky Four.
Chauvinistic thing. The +1 had to be the girl. Why could it have been Keith Keith? Why could it have been Ronnie C? So what I'm trying to say is, everybody in the beginning, and let's say Jersey, Connecticut, Philly, when it was just still in there, nobody was traveling no further than that, knew who this girl was, because they was the first group on Saturday Night Live. I was pissed off. Like, how the hell they do that? Before Grandmaster Flash in the Furious 5.
Well, you want me to tell you how, and then I'll finish?
We can take it out. Okay, go ahead. What I'm trying to say is that the male Shantae came out on Pop Arts. To the people in Philly who may not have known anything, they probably thought Roxanne Shantae was the first female rapper. Because our people have a history of not checking your history.
Wow.
Okay? We don't have a history of going back to see what's really true and what's not really true. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to say this one time only. There was no Jam Master Jay on the first two Run DMC records. Mm. But when you want to tell the story, then you tell your story and it's believable. Mm-hmm. And not just in Jay, because he's not here. I know. Everybody knows.
Well, let me add on to that, and not to take nothing from them, but you had Baby D, which is one of the original DJs. That was the DJ for Run.